and start now. So first off, I want to thank all of you for joining us this morning. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Waja Dube. I am the Africa Collection Manager at Index Select. And today, for our new Live with Index Talks, we've got two amazing guests. I'm very, very excited to have joining me today. First of all, we have Paige Ellenson, who is the co-founder of the Africa Yoga Project, who's based down in Nairobi. Hi, Paige. Thank you for joining us.
Hi. And
then secondly, we have my good friend and client and confidant, Ms. Lena Gellot, who is an impact entrepreneur, on the board member of African Yoga Project, and of course is president of the EO Kenya and the owner and director of Finch, Hattons and Mahali, Missouri. So thank you both for joining us for this talk.
Thanks, Waja. Thank you, Waja.
So before we jump right into it, where are you both right now, and how's COVID on your side?
Okay, I can start. I can speak for both Lena and I that we're both in Nairobi. So I've been in Nairobi. I arrived back in Nairobi the day that our first COVID case happened, which was back in March. And with the communities that I work with, I'll speak from them. So there's been, I don't know, Lena, how many cases? Like 3,000?
There's 3,000 cases, just over.
Yeah, just over 3,000 cases, and we've been on lockdown pretty much. We have a curfew now from 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. But it's really impacted our communities, especially the communities that we work with in the informal sector and the slums, and that they're not able to work like everyone globally, but they're not really able to socially distance. So a lot of the communities we work with live in tight quarters with maybe 10 families sharing a bathroom. So Africa Yoga Project has been really working on thinking about what well-being means during COVID-19 and being able to provide our communities with the ability to stay home and socially distance.
Great, thank you.
I'll just add that obviously the travel industry has been hit pretty hard. There's quite a few of the larger brands that have actually laid off a lot of people. On a positive note though, I do hope that the Kenyan travel industry can come out of this a lot less fragmented. Mm-hmm. And there's some amazing task forces out there just helping to reimagine tourism and to get everyone back up and running on their feet.
Great, thank you. Now, obviously, I did forget to say this. For anyone who has any questions, please put them in the Q&A chat box. We will be answering most of your questions. We'll try to get to all of them at the end of the chat. We will have about 15 to 20 minutes to answer all questions. But with that said, now, of course, this chat is about wellness, the rise of wellness in Africa and well-being. So with that said, Lena, I actually wanted to start with you because, of course, we've been working together for some time, and I've had the pleasure of getting to visit Finch Hattons at least once a year, and your staff treat me so much like a king, and then until I do yoga, then they treat me like a pretzel. It's a learning experience. After your refurbishment in 2015, how did you look to mix the Finch Hattons as a camp with holistic experiences and mindfulness for the guests?
Since we opened 27 years ago, I think we've always been at the forefront of safari and travel and trying to be visionary. So when we refurbished the camp, we were looking to see what we can do that is unique and forward thinking. And you've been to Finch Hattons, Waja, you see the space. It just lends itself to well-being and to wellness. And so we made a concerted effort to put in a spa with a hammam, and we wanted to focus on yoga. We've done a lot of feng shui at the camp, so that's also, we believe in energetics, and that's all well aligned. We have we grow our own food as well. So we do farm to table as much as we can. And that's how we've kind of encompassed the whole holistic, unique experiences and trying to bring something different to the table than, your regular safari.
Absolutely. And I had the pleasure of working with Faith in November. And for someone who considers himself quite fit, she had me on the floor pretty quickly. So just panting. And now, Paige, a lot of people, of course, you are very well known in the wellness and yoga space. But for those of you that don't know you, what brought you to Kenya in 2006 and ultimately led to you creating and co-founding the Africa Yoga Project? And of course, teaming up with Lena.
Yeah, thanks. I actually came to Kenya in 2006 to go on a safari with my parents to places, unfortunately not Finch Hattons, but places, similar to Finch Hattons, really unique, beautiful experiences of wildlife and culture. And being I'm a New Yorker, so I'm born and raised in New York, and I've been teaching yoga for 20 years. So I came to Kenya as a tourist who also taught yoga. And I was at Amboseli National Park, which is one of the parks that's right on the border of Tanzania, where Mount Kilimanjaro is kind of the backdrop. And I saw a bunch of young men doing handstands. And being a yoga teacher, I thought, oh, wow, they do yoga in the bush too. I mean, I think one interesting thing about New Yorkers is we're so multicultural and so, you have such a melting pot that sometimes even the melting pot becomes a little insular facing. Like I actually didn't know a lot about a lot of things, but I thought I knew everything because I knew so many cultures in New York. And so I thought that these guys were doing yoga in the middle of the bush, these Maasai guys. So I jumped out of my safari vehicle and I did a handstand with them. And I told them my name. And a few months later, they found me on social media and said, hey, can you come back and teach us yoga? And after many no's, I said yes. And I realized they weren't doing yoga in the middle of the bush. They were doing acrobatics. And they were a group of young people that actually weren't Maasai. I just thought that every person in the bush was. They were a bunch of different tribes and from Kibera, which is the largest informal settlement in Africa, which I see Jim asked a question about. So when I came back to Kenya, I was teaching yoga to this group of acrobats and their students that were all living in the informal settlements. And what I realized quite quickly was these young people were so ambitious and so in their bodies and full of heart and full of depth and had so much potential and not a lot of opportunity to explore that for work. And so what I realized that they needed even more than the skill of yoga was they needed jobs, and they made extraordinary yoga teachers. So that was really the birth of Africa Yoga Project, was to see that the well-being industry, which is an $80 billion industry globally, that Africa is really using that we're a small part of that industry and we could be much bigger. And so we decided that we would train young people on the continent. We're in 22 countries on the continent to be leaders in the well-being industry. And that's really how Lena and I met, because she has such an incredible passion for bringing well-being into her property and bringing transformation into her property, that it was a perfect match to be able to support community development through Finch Hattons.
Absolutely. And Lena, of course, you have made a conscious choice to have, of course, with the Chiulu Spa, yoga included in your rates. And of course, bringing yoga practitioners who are graduates of the Africa Yoga Project to work at the camp. How has that worked in terms of, how has that, I guess, been for them into bringing them to, of course, work in the bush and to bring yoga to the bush, and of course to promote the Africa Yoga Project? I mean, again, I've been a participant of it myself, and I've seen guests who spend hours with them at the spa. How has it been for you to bring in these new staff members, I guess you can say, and to have them run this program for you at the camp?
Well, we are real advocates for promoting local employment. I could have easily gone abroad and looked for a yoga teacher and an expat. I think a lot of camps kind of focus on that for well-being. But I really wanted to integrate, local partners into what we do, and in turn, that impacts the community. So it's actually really exciting to have these yoga teachers come into the safari space and the hospitality space, because they are from very underprivileged communities, and half of them have never even seen wildlife. So it's been a real joy to expose them to that, and then also to expose our staff to yoga. There was a bit of resistance there, but they have really gotten into it, and they talk a lot about how much it's helped to improve their mental, just their mental health and wellness.
Great. Actually, that was going to lead me to my next question, Paige, about the effects of yoga in terms of the psychosocial impact it makes upon communities. Like you said before, you're working with a lot of underprivileged communities. And especially, I know that you've been to places like Somalia, where there's a lot of trauma. How have you found your practices are helping these communities, not only physically, but also mentally? And then going back to the other point about empowerment, you use a learn to earn model, I believe you call it. So how do all those parts combine?
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, pre-COVID, about 50% of youth under 35 were unemployed in Kenya, and that's pretty much consistent in sub-Saharan Africa. I say pre-COVID because you can imagine that figure has gone up globally significantly. We don't really know what it is right now, but so unemployment is a huge issue. Unemployment leads to being employed in things of all sorts of natures. A lot of our teachers come from a background of theft. I have one teacher always telling a story about how, he used to use his hands to steal, and now he uses his hands to heal. Drugs, prostitution, petty crime. I mean, the minimum wage in Kenya for someone who's unskilled labor in the informal or kind of beginning of the formal sector is about $110 a month, $150, for a kind of a more skilled gardener or housekeeper. And so the pathway, a lot of young people that don't have access to secondary education or any formal vocational education, is to either go super informal and, get into some trouble, or to take these, minimum wage jobs. So you can imagine that when we think about basic needs, when we think about this population, we're thinking about basic needs. We're thinking about shelter, food, health, but health from the, curative sense, not preventative. We're not thinking about empowerment and leadership and opportunity and creating new opportunities. And to me, all these things go very closely together at Africa Yoga Project. I can't separate the hope of the economics from mental health, because if you don't have a job and you don't have food, but you're doing yoga, I mean, I'm sorry for all the yoga practitioners on the call, but you try, it's a privilege to say, oh, yoga helps my mental health. It's very hard to help your mental health when you don't have the basics. So I think that, I think mental health, physical health, economic health, or, we're talking a lot in the media and in the world about justice these days, and economic justice is a huge issue that I think Africa Yoga Project is working on. But our teachers, I mean, to me, COVID, and I think, from the stories that I get to tell Lena, COVID has been the ultimate test of our teachers' leadership, because our community of over 400 trained teachers has been able to so quickly and rapidly change what they do, from in-person yoga classes to using their leadership to think about what else needs to happen that would keep people well. And our teachers are out there giving out hand sanitizers, or setting up water stations, and identifying families in need. They're rebuilding houses. And that's not their core skill, but that shows that they are leaders. They're empowered to make change. We offer each of our teachers and anyone on this call who wants to donate, it costs $200 to offer our teachers a grant that they use for their community, and they decide what can happen with that $200. And they change 20 families for the month, you know, lives with that $200. So to me, I mean, even from my own experience during COVID, being home and homeschooling my daughter and, you know, all the stress and like doing yoga online, being bored is the ultimate enemy of your mental and physical health. And our teachers have been not bored at all, and they've been empowered and making change. And I really think that's this 3 months has showed me the difference that Africa Yoga Project has made and will continue to make.
Great.
Roger, if I add something, I think that's
please.
been really great about the AYP teachers is that this has enabled them to also practice their entrepreneurial skills. You know, on where are they using the grants and how they're going to make them stretch as far as possible in the communities.
No, that's amazing. Now, Lena, for obviously Finch Hattons is a luxury property, and there's not been many luxury properties in the Africa space that have really wanted to take on mindfulness and wellness and actually incorporate this into safaris. What was the big impetus for you to make that happen? And how do you see, you kind of, not to obviously call anyone out, but how do you see that compares against other properties throughout Africa that, you know, have a wellness aspect, but has not quite gone as far as you have with your team?
I would say that it starts with, you know, personal passion. And for me, safari and mindfulness and well-being, I mean, just being out in the middle of 1 million acres, it forces you to just slow down. So as soon as you come, people just, you know, we say they experience themselves. You arrive and, you know, whether you're on your phone or whatever it is, within 24 hours, you've slowed down, you're connecting to nature. And so for us, it was just a natural fit, actually. And how do we compare to other properties? I would say that, you know, the beauty of Savo is you really do feel like king of the jungle there. There is no one else around for millions and millions of acres. So it's just you and nature, and everyone, half the people that come there leave, you know, with tears in their eyes because they don't want to go. And they've just experienced themselves on another level.
And to that, you know, you made one of the programs that I love the most of any programs that I've been lucky to work on. You've made the Finch Hattons Wellness Program. Can you talk a little bit about that and what makes that 4-day itinerary that you've created so unique?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we're part of the Abercrombie and Kent Wellness retreats as well. So it's combining, I mean, for us, we really, we do have a special program, but we can personalize anything that we do and bring in additional practitioners depending on what our clients want. But the idea is that, you know, you arrive and you're just slowing down, disconnecting from your busy lives. And then you've got the opportunity to, one, have fresh, healthy meals. You can do cooking classes. You've got the yoga, you've got mindfulness and meditation. And what's important for us is really to just personalize and cater it towards what our clients need.
Great. Now to both of you, of course, Paige, you have clients that want to come and come down to your headquarters, the Shine Center in Nairobi, and also do their own trips through Kenya, mixing in with wellness. And Lena, you also have created, let me say that Finch Hattons has become more of a retreat for some who want to come to Africa and, of course, enjoy the wilderness and the safari and everything that is on offer in Africa, but then come to Finch Hattons and enjoy some wellness. This question is to both of you. How have you seen the rise in wellness travelers coming to Africa? And what makes them different from going to other destinations, say in Asia or in Europe or other destinations?
I could just start with some figures that don't necessarily talk about the rise, but talk about the opportunity that we've been looking at. So I forget which report this is from, like the International Wellbeing Report, I think well-being travel in North America, it's a $54.8 billion industry, in Europe, a $31.7 billion industry, in Asia, a $46.8 billion industry, in Africa, a $0.1 billion industry.
That's just depressing.
And then the number of trips kind of mirror that. And I mean, last year I led yoga teacher trainings in Thailand, in Bali, in Morocco, in America. And, you know, I just remember being on the beaches in Thailand and in Bali, which are lovely, and all of the infrastructure built up around well-being is really awesome. I mean, I love like looking at vegan meals everywhere I went. But like being on the beach in Kenya is just, it's just nicer. I mean, our beaches are just more beautiful. Our wildlife, you can't even compare it. Like I'm so kind of frustrated, you know, that these other continents have such, you know, robust well-being industries. And I see, you know, in my time traveling in Africa, there's so much talent. There's so many people like Lena and young people that are incredible massage therapists or vegan chefs or yoga teachers. I'm really for, you know, what Lena's doing to be able to increase the opportunity for people to want to come to Africa as a place where they can really plug into nature. And I think it's really beautiful what's happening in America and around the world with Black Lives Matter. And I really hope it sparks a curiosity in, you know, white and Black people to think about, you know, what is the culture of Africa and how can we use culture to be well, both in our hearts and our souls? And, you know, what would it be like to practice yoga with a young African teacher who brings their culture and their heritage and their background to the practice, and how they've stayed well despite very challenging circumstances. So yeah, that's what I want to say. I really see the potential and opportunity if everyone, you know, on this call brings their clients or friends or themselves to the continent to really plug into being well.
You know, I really believe that post-COVID, people who are going to be traveling are looking for transformative travel as well. Now that they're going to make the effort to travel and go far, they're looking for impact in what they do and transformation. So I think this is, you know, a huge opportunity for travel in the region. I have a number of colleagues who've already pivoted their businesses to start doing, you know, mindfulness nature walks or, you know, breathwork sessions together with like the Wim Hof ice methods in the bush. And I think there's a huge opportunity here. It's just about marketing and value perception by the rest of the world compared to the regular Thailand and Indian ashrams, shall we say.
And then both of you perfectly said, because this will actually lead me to my next question, which is, what do you think are the biggest roadblocks that Africa as a continent faces to bringing wellness and mindfulness to the forefront and changing that number from you said $0.001 billion?
$0.1 billion.
$0.1 billion to even $1 billion. Mm-hmm. What are our obstacles? What do we need to overcome here? Especially in the hospitality space.
I think it's perception. I mean, I'm just reading Jim's question, and I think that, you know, the perception of the continent is that, you know, everyone's malnourished and, you know, is more concerned about war than about yoga. And actually, we have a bigger problem on the continent with people being overweight than anything else. Like, there's more malnutrition from people being overweight as a continent. And about 99% of the funding goes to getting more food. And yet there's more people that need, you know, education on what types of food, how to exercise. So I think there's both, I think the perception, and I think that people only see Africa as like the one journey of the lifetime, you know, of going on the safari, to tick off the box of their safari trip. And to be honest, the JFK to Kenya, you know, Nairobi flight is the same as going to Bali, pretty much. So you know, the same way people make their annual trip to Bali, I think that all the different cultures and lodges and opportunities, and like what Lena's doing, all the different transformational travel, like bike trips and walking and hiking, and yeah, I think it's perception.
Paige, do you want to answer Jim's question on, you know, is it the wealthy in Africa responding to yoga and wellness? I think there's a beautiful story there about what AYP does in the slums and in the communities, and how people have taken to yoga.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we have a huge opportunity in Kenya and the other countries we work with to be able to restructure the way well-being is offered. I think in America it very much went from a, you know, top-down approach. You know, like it was a practice that was mainly introduced, you know, for women, mostly white women of a certain economics, you know, have time on their hands. And the way that we're introducing it in Africa is really from a community standpoint. As people get trained, they're teaching in their own communities. We led over 250,000 Shavasanas last year on the continent for free. So for people that aren't wealthy. And then I think, you know, like if you go into the Shine Center, you find them mostly middle class Africans. I don't think you find mostly the elite or wealthy. I think that the more that our diet becomes, you know, sugar and starch, and people are overweight and suffering from high blood pressure and diabetes, it's not socioeconomics. It's really most people that are dealing with that, and that's why they're coming to the practice. Maybe not for like Om Shanti Shanti, but literally like so they can breathe better.
Sure, and I've been to classes in the slums, and it's, you know, it's phenomenal to see different people from different walks of life come in and really appreciate and connect in those community centers. And it's also one of the only kind of community centers which is not based on religion. So it brings a sense of safety and security to a lot of those, to a lot of the community dwellers.
Great. Now, a few more questions. What are, I mean, obviously these questions should be quite apparent to many people, but what would you say are the biggest economic, health, and environmental benefits that wellness travel as a whole is bringing to the continent, and to the benefit of the tourists?
You know, for me, it's about integrating wellness with partners like AYP, so that I know, you know, what we're doing here is impacting. It's a far bigger impact than just simply me doing a yoga class at Finch for one of my clients. And you know, we have clients from all over the world that come, and you know, I'm sure they're signed up to some pretty expensive yoga teachers wherever they live, and they come there and they're just blown away by the standards of the AYP teachers, and they love their stories, and to see, you know, where these guys have come from and how they're giving back.
I just have to laugh at Jim's question. Are they wearing Lululemon for yoga? Let me tell you, the continent is the only continent, I think, without a Lululemon store. So we are the perfect recipient of damaged Lululemon goods. And they're one of our partners. So actually, you will find a lot of Lululemon on our t-shirts because we have a lot of, they're an amazing partner, and they donate a lot to us, a lot of old clothes. And
Sonia March, who also works with Jim, hi Sonia, also wants to know, where would you recommend networking in California to get people interested in joining a wellness safari? And I guess that actually leads to a bigger question in general about your Paige. I guess this is actually for both of you, but also for Paige, about the groups that you've had coming through AYP to do wellness courses down with you in Kenya. How are those people coming down? I know we've got a couple of them even on this call right now, so we'd love to hear from them. But how are they getting connected with you? How are they connecting with other practitioners in the States and coming down?
Yeah, well, Sonia should connect with Megan, who's on the call. She's in California and works at a yoga studio there. I think yoga studio partners are a great place to start. I think that what Lena and I have spoken about is having like a host, like having a leader of a group that takes their students could work, especially a leader that understands, if they were to work with us in Africa Yoga Project and Finch, understands the ethos. And maybe even, I saw there's this great campaign going on right now called Pass the Mic, where white female leaders are passing the mic to Black female leaders and having them do Instagram takeovers. And I could see that being something cool, like on a wellness safari where, maybe an established teacher in the States partners with a teacher in Kenya and they co-lead a retreat together. But I would also say there's a lot of more upscale gatherings like the Goop gathering, which is Gwyneth Paltrow's brand. There's a lot of really upscale, interesting gatherings that I think we could market to. We haven't yet necessarily mastered the luxury wellness market. A lot of our people that come are interested more in a volunteer tourism type experience, and that's what they're coming for. But I see them often taking safaris after, so I think we're just missing the mark on marketing.
Right. And that actually does lead me to my next question. This one comes from Meredith McCleary down in Florida. Hi, Meredith. She asked, what suggestions do you have on how to promote Kenya as a wellness destination and dispel the all too common myth on the African continent that it is unhealthy and dangerous to come to such a destination? I guess I'll point that one to you.
It's amazing that apparently we're one of the biggest exporters of plants for aromatherapy. We also have some of the freshest produce that goes out to Europe, and in terms of fruit and vegetable, it's just a value. It's a perception. So we do need, the Kenyan Tourism Board to help us push that out. And this is one of our through the Reimagine Task Force that we're hoping to change the perception of Africa and wellness. But really it's about marketing and showing that we've got unique experiences, we've got unique places, and we can integrate wellness into any of that, and together with different kinds of practitioners, whether it's Reiki healing or mindfulness or coaches. There is such a wealth of professionals on the continent, and it's just about plugging together and connecting.
Yeah, I'd also add to that, I think for yoga people or well-being people, we love wisdom. We love going to Bali to the Bali, we love Eat, Pray, Love, right? And so if you think about Eat, Pray, Love, those destinations have become destinations for transformative journeys. And Africa could so fit in. It's they need to do another chapter, Eat, Pray, Love, and ground and transform or something. But I think that, really looking at what is the wisdom of the cultures here and how do we kind of Western, give that to a Western audience that's interested in transformation. Because if you spend time with the Maasai tribe or the Samburu tribe and listen to their proverbs and their ways of being, I think that that's, I don't know, somehow for being in the yoga world for 20 years, we love that stuff, we love ancient wisdom, and how do you plug that in so that it's really a learning from the people? And I think that's Lena's relationship with AYP and using Kenyan teachers lends itself to that, of really it being something cultural and transformative. And what Lena said, the impact, the actual impact work.
Yes, and I think from a personal perspective, I think right now with everything that's going on, with the movement in the States right now, and this, of course, that's been spread around the world, it is a really great opportunity now to see more diversity as well and more inclusion in in not only wellness, but in travel in general. And this is a great opportunity. I mean, I'm down here in Brooklyn, and we've got a lot of yoga practitioners and studios out here, people of color who are not aware of that they can come to Africa and or aware of AYP and Finch Hattons, and these experiences are there. So to those folks, how do you want to communicate best, or how do you want to connect with them, both as an organization, as AYP page, and Lena as a camp?
Sorry, can you repeat that, Waja? Which organizations?
Yes, just with more communities of color who are practicing yoga and wellness, especially here in the States. Again, I'm saying I'm here in Brooklyn, so we've got a lot of these different establishments here in studios. How do you want to promote to these demographics of people of color to not only come to Africa to, like Paige said, learn more about deeper history and culture, but to also take their passion of wellness and yoga and actually, instead of going to destinations like Bali or India, coming to Africa and coming to you instead?
This is like so my passion right now, because when I think about yoga teachers, I mean, it's kind of like liking your own children and maybe thinking they're the best, but like I take my teachers' classes and I'm blown away. And you know, they've been teaching and leading yoga for 10 years, a lot of them, like 10 years under their belt. But if you think about who's marginalized from their voice being out in society, you know, yes, people of color, but then African people of color even more have a harder time getting into the global well-being industry. So I think that because there's such an emphasis on that now, and like, you know, a lot of people muting themselves to hear different voices and understand the value of hearing other people's experiences, and you know, inherently the role of a student, it's like an awesome role because you're putting your ego aside instead of like when we're on social media and we're like fighting, you know, who knows more. So I think it's a huge opportunity for people of color and for people that are white to come to Africa and learn from these young people who are very experienced. And I think the role that I see Africa Yoga Project taking is being a resource to people like you, Waza, and Lena, to say, bring the people, we will have a teacher and you'll be able to give them a job, and, you know, fundraise for us to train other people to give them jobs as well.
Great, thank you.
You know, I wouldn't want to differentiate between color per se, but I think a big thing is selling unique experiences. There is so much you can do on the continent that you just can't do anywhere else. And I'll use the example of a leadership academy that we hosted at Finch Hattons, where we then, together with the Maasai, went into their sacred forest to see what happens when they initiate you know, their teenagers to become leaders and Morans in the tribe. And, you know, everyone was just fascinated. But it was the experience. It was the experience of being with the tribe in their sacred forest, and then them explaining, you know, how they choose their leaders. And then we actually brought in a cow and sacrificed it the way that they normally do for their graduation ceremonies. And it was incredible because, you know, we had Americans, we had Asians, we had people from a lot of different places. And, you know, it was the men, of course, who just got super excited, and they were like, yeah, I want to drink the blood. And then one of them was like, oh my God, I'm vegan. What am I going to tell, you know, what am I going to tell my wife? And I was like, you've drunk milk and blood mixed together and you're vegan. And, you know, the reason I bring that up is just because it's just the experience and being in it that just can totally carry you away. So I also take great pride in saying that we can convert vegans at Finch Hattons if you need. That's how transformative we are.
That's real transformative.
No, I will piggyback on that. I took two of my yoga teachers to a Maasai village that are like the Sharon and David, who started Jivamukti Yoga, and it's like the hub of vegan, you know, yoga in the world. And you know, when she went to the Maasai village, she was like, you know, I have to reflect. She didn't transform from being a vegan, But I have to reflect, like, if there is the least amount of harm that you can cause, it's the way that people are living there. So it actually is true what Lena's saying, and it's so transformative to be in these untouched cultures that really have kept their culture for so many years.
Absolutely.
And are authentic. Yeah, totally authentic.
Authentic, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a Kalanga myself, and I love going home to see my people. But then, coming to places like Finch, Hattons, and getting to spend time with the Maasai, not doing anything in particular, but just hanging out, to me. And this was actually just in November. I mean, that was one of the greatest experiences. And of course, going into the forest as well. And being a literally African and American and having these experiences and relating them to my own people is fantastic. So that's amazing. We've got a few more questions. Meredith McClear has another question. Are any of these activities being done, especially with the Magical Kenya, the tourism board? Meredith, I assume that's in regards to promoting wellness. So I guess if I'm answering that question correctly, how was the Kenya Tourism Board working with you or collaborating with you to promote wellness and mindfulness in the country?
So they were, together with KTV, they've been looking at signature experiences that they can help to promote and change the perception of Kenya just being, just the regular kind of marketing that they've been doing since the 70s of a safari destination. Mm-hmm. So we're actually listed as one of their signature wellness experiences. And, especially with COVID, I think they realize that it's time to really just look at innovative and diversified products. We all would like them to work at a much faster speed than they are, but that's government for you here.
And always get what we want.
But I'm glad that they're actually out there and recognizing this and seeing that what are the USPs that Kenya's got, which will differentiate from the surrounding countries, and looking at these unique experiences, whether it's wellness or culture. And helping us to promote them.
Great.
I just had a really good idea,
yes.
Lena. We should have Magical Kenya do like yoga classes from the bush on their Instagram.
On the virtual, yeah. So we're doing virtual safaris. We should combine a virtual yoga.
Yeah. Well-being. Yeah.
See, ideas being made right here in front of your eyes, people.
Good brainstorming.
So we've got one last question before we close out. And this is from Hema Shah down in New Jersey. Hey, Hema. She goes, in her opinion, the U.S. market is more interested in Africa for wildlife and culture. We are into wellness spas, but I don't see many spending dollars on flights and accommodations for that to Africa when they can do wonderful spa wellness experiences for half the cost closer to home. That's more of a statement, I guess. But I will, let me jump into that and first off say that I totally agree. I think Africa has, of course we love our wilderness and our wildlife, but that unfortunately has become the highlight of Africa when there's so much more. And even coming to a place like Finch Hattons, I think a lot of guests will come there and realize that, you're not just coming there for wildlife. So what do you, I guess I'm going to post this out to both of you. What do you think about that statement from Hema? And what do you think, more importantly, can be done, not only by us here in the States, but also on your end to promote more tourism that is not just about animals and wildlife, but more about, wellness and culture and immersion and inclusion and experience, unique experiences, like Nina said.
So for me, I don't think we're trying to replicate what is in the States or try and copy paste what is in Bali or in Thailand. And so, I don't see anyone traveling to Africa just to do a 1 week at the Finch Hattons spa just to do yoga. That's not what we're trying to sell. It's really about combining the entire experience of being out in nature, and what does that give added value to the wellness program, that and being out with the Maasai tribes, It's a holistic combination of all of that, and that's totally unique to what we can offer here in Africa. For me, it's also about long-term sustainability. You know, how is the tourism industry here promoting sustainability in terms of helping the communities? At the end of the day, we're all interconnected. We don't operate in a bubble. And so, you know, it's important for us to plug into different partners like AYP and who are local and can help us to bring kind of wellness into this space.
Great.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I mean, Lena talks to me a lot about transformation and transformational experiences. And I think, you know, that's what she's pointing to, is it's not just about rest and relaxation for either of us, it's about transformation. And I think another great example to bring into the space is, you know, along with what Lena's doing, is Lamu, which is an island off the coast of Kenya, has really, it's a very small island, but they've done a great job with their well-being travel. I think there's probably more yoga teachers per capita, like in Lamu, than I've ever seen in Africa, and it's an all Muslim island. But they have a yoga festival every year that sells out. It's 400 or 500 people. The whole island's full. You can't find other accommodations, and they're using the culture. It's not just a yoga festival. Like, I've gone to yoga festivals in New York where it's like at the Sheraton, New York, in different ballrooms, so it's different teachers. The Lamu Yoga Festival, you know, you'll have dhow rides with drumming and chanting on the ocean, and you'll be doing yoga in these incredible Swahili spaces. So I think it's really about using our culture, our food, our taste, our stories, and combining it with, because, you know, it's what Lena said, it's about sustainability, but it's also about health. I mean, to be in a safari vehicle from 5 a.m. till, you know, 6 p.m. and eating 3 buffets a day, and, you know, you see all these amazing things, but you might not leave that experience feeling so great in your body because you've just gained so much weight, you know, and we're sitting a lot of the time. So I think it's also, how do we enhance the typical safari experience so that someone leaves their experience feeling awesome and feeling healthy and great?
Great.
And you're connecting with the cradle of mankind here, you know, we have a lot of clients who actually request to do yoga out when they're on the sundowners, because they're completely in the middle of nature. I mean, that's totally unique to what you're going to get here.
Yes, I definitely went hiking up the Chilo Dolyarami and around the crater and did a little meditation on top of that, looking at Mount Kili. And for someone who's done yoga a total of 3 times, that being my second, that was an experience that I will never forget. And my first was actually in India. So I've done more yoga actually in Africa than I have anywhere else in the world, both times at Finch. So thanks for that.
And I think our clients are testament to that, because actually they love it. And I'm really surprised that a lot of people are doing, like, they'll do yoga in the morning before the safari, and then they'll come back and then they'll do another half an hour class. And because, you know, it's all inclusive and you can do 30 minutes. No one's saying come and do a 1 hour. And you know what, if you don't want to do that, have 3 massages a day. That's also part of wellness.
Exactly. We've got one question, which I'm very happy to see. This is from Batso Dambe down in Botswana. Does AYP operate in Botswana? And if so, where?
Jim had asked me about Zambia. I know that we don't. Botswana, I do think we have 1 teacher, and I can connect offline with you to get their contacts.
Perfect.
But not many, if you know that. And if anyone, because Jim asked the same thing, if anyone on the call works with lodges or destinations that would be interested in having a yoga teacher, we could definitely work with them to get them to our training and see how we can make that connection. We would love that.
Perfect. That was going to be my question to you, my last question to you. And my last question to you, Lena, is for anyone who wants to organize their own wellness trips, I guess actually to both of you, but to anyone who wants to organize their own wellness trips and come to Finch Hattons, of course, you know, like you mentioned, we do have the customized wellness program. But what is your advice to anyone that wants to come down to Finch and perhaps even come down to the Shine Center and spend some time with you both?
We're all about, you know, personalized, unique experiences. So if people want to come out here and do breath work combined with yoga, or they want to do Reiki combined with yoga, there's so many practitioners, and we can help to source and find the right fit for their clients.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, I'd have the same answer. We have if you go to africayogaproject.org, we have a bunch of experiences that are kind of itineraries, and then also we can work one-on-one with people or groups. Especially, I saw there was a comment about impact. If someone wanted to land in Nairobi, spend half a day meeting a yoga teacher, going to the slums, seeing what that outreach class is like, what is the teacher's community like, we can safely and in an experienced way create that type of itinerary and really give people a sense of what life in Nairobi is like for our teachers. And then when they do go to Finch, they'd be able to connect with that teacher in a different environment, but able to see the impact that they're having.
Amazing. Thank you both. Okay, so with that, I first want to thank you both, Lena and Paige, for joining us today for another episode of Live with Index. I also want to thank our partners, the Exchange over at the Africa Travel Association. And for anyone who has any more questions, I know we had quite a few in here. Hopefully we got to answer all of them. Thank you so much for asking such engaging questions to both Paige and to Lena. And again, if you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to me. We will be able to also provide you Lena and Paige's information for social, everything else. And with that, ladies, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And honestly, I cannot wait to come back out to Kenya soon and do some yoga with you both.
Thank you, Aja. Thank you to everyone who joined as well.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you guys so much.
Take care.
Take care. Bye.